Hey guys, welcome back to the classroom, where it's you, me, and my trusty whiteboard, where we go through matters of the body, mind, heart, and spirit. My name is Dr. Roshan Ramnarayan, and class is in session. Today is a follow-up lecture in terms of what I previously spoke about in my talk on the power of fasting. I got a lot of good feedback from that. There are a lot of good questions and whatnot. And one of the viewers, they asked the question, how do I break my fast? Is there any particular time? Should I eat anything in particular? How should I break my fast? And that was an excellent question. So, which is the basis of today's talk? How to break a fast. Now, the idea here is that when we're fasting, whether it's an intermittent fast or a water fast, there's a lot of good things happening. And like I mentioned in my previous lecture, we have a process called autophagy. And you can link back to my fasting lecture to understand what this means. But just really quickly, it's an amazing, amazing process where we break down old cells and recycle them for fuel. I spoke about this more in depth in my fasting lecture, and it's a really amazing process. But this happens during our fasting time. After the 16-hour mark in an intermittent fast and then a water fast, of course, it will be a bit more prolonged. But also, equally important during a regular fast is that our blood sugars are very low. In a good way, because normally we associate low blood sugar with feelings of dizziness or I'm not feeling too well, that sort of thing. But in a fast, because we haven't eaten anything that would create high blood sugar levels, our blood sugars will dip down. And so let me try it in a graph, because I think that will be a better idea of demonstrating it. So this is blood sugar, and this is time. So let's say, for instance, we started to fast here. This is our fasting blood sugar. Let's say, for instance, we had our last meal here. So we had our last meal at 8 p.m. We had like dinner time, for instance. And then over the night, our blood sugars would start to dip. And then we begin our fast, and the sugars would continue. Because we didn't have any breakfast, the sugars would, and it would remain stable here. So normally, let's say, for instance, here is, let's just call here 7 a.m. We would have had a little sugar spike here with breakfast, essentially. But because we didn't have breakfast, our blood sugars continue being lower and lower. Now, you don't have to worry, because there is a beautiful, beautiful process called GLUCO, gluconeogenesis. So, in our liver, we're able to have this beautiful process called gluconeogenesis. Big fancy word, but gluco meaning sugar, neo meaning new, and genesis meaning creation. So we have the ability to create new sugars. Right? It's important that we remember that. In addition to that, we also have 24 hours of sugar stored in our liver in the form of glycogen. Now, you might be asking me, but this is all well and good, but if I don't eat, when I'm supposed to eat, if I don't eat after a couple hours, I get a headache, I get dizziness, I feel sick, I want to pass out. Guys, that to me is a big red flag. That tells me that your body is not accustomed in accessing this store of sugar, and your body is not accustomed in firing up this process here. And so if you go back to my fasting video where we talk about autophagy, we also have, in that video I outlined how we can very gently, very slowly get ourselves into a fasting state without having those wanting to pass out and headaches, those feelings of hunger and very, very terrible feelings associated with not eating. So have no fear, guys. During a prolonged fast, our blood sugar stabilizes. It's not trending towards zero, it stabilizes. And the whole idea here into how to break a fast, the last thing that we want is that when we break a fast is to have a huge sugar spike. Why? Because alongside this low blood sugar, we would have also low levels of insulin as well. Because remember, insulin is released in response to blood sugars. I spoke about this in my diabetes video. You can check that out as well. And so we will have low levels of insulin as well. So remember, the purpose of insulin is to drive blood sugar into these cells, from the blood vessels into these cells to be used as energy. So because our blood sugar is low, there's not much need for insulin at that point in time. And usually, we would, depending on the length of the fast, we would actually go into something called ketosis, where we use fat as a form of fuel. But we'll talk about it in another lecture. I want to keep this lecture sort of nice and tight in a sense. So for me, what I would like to, my objective in how to break a fast is essentially preventing a sugar spike when we actually do break our fast. So I'll pose this to you. Let's say, for instance, now we've been fasting for a while, and at this point here now we've decided, okay, I've done my time, I feel good, I fasted well, top notch, I want to eat now. What do you think we can eat to prevent our sugar from spiking? And I'll give you 2-3 seconds to think about it. So, this happened to me many times, many times. 2 months, especially when I was a younger guy, I fasted 20 hours, 24 hours, 36 hours. And at the end of it, I felt like, yo, I need a snack. I need to reward myself now. And it just so happened that the wife maybe baked some bread, or, you know, there was something delectable to eat. And because I was such a good boy for such a long time, well, you know what happened, right? And so having that carb-heavy meal, whatever, you know, it could be anything carb-heavy. It could be bread, it could be pizza, it could be a sugary drink, it could be anything that's carb-heavy. What will happen is, because our blood sugar levels are so low and our insulin levels are so low, there is this huge exaggerated blood sugar response. And along with that, there is the exaggerated insulin spike. And that throws our body into a loop, and we don't feel well. So the idea now is, in preventing that sugar spike, what we must do is, we have high, good quality fat and high protein, relatively high protein. So can we think of any foods that fit this bill? So for instance, we can have, I don't know if I could write it this way. So we can have eggs. I look at eggs like a little life seed. They have all the protein required to give that little chick some flesh, all the iron in the egg to fill that chick up with blood, all the calcium to give that little chick bones. And so it's like a little life seed. That's how I look at eggs. We can have yogurt, proper good quality yogurt. We can have nuts. And well, if you're into it, you can have some lean meats. I'm vegetarian, but that's just a personal preference. I would break a fast with sardines. And so this way, this doesn't happen. And as a result of that, the blood sugar levels now continue sort of like that. And we don't feel unwell, and there is no exaggerated response that would just, and also all the good that we would have done, we would have sparked gluconeogenesis, we would have come to a nice level of, like a nice resting state. Doing this almost defeats the entire purpose of the fast, unfortunately. It creates a huge inflammatory response. So what we break, and the longer the fast that we go is the more important of how we break the fast. If it's just at 16 hours that we fast, it might not be as important because, the blood sugars might not be as stable, and we might still be running on a little bit of glycogen, for instance. We might not have gone fully into ketosis. But the longer the fast, the 48-hour fast, anything beyond that, what we break the fast with is really important. Depending on how long you fast for, I would even recommend breaking the fast with just some thin vegetable broth, for instance, just to get the gut back accustomed to it. Now, as when I talk about fasting, I always say, please consult your physician before you try any sort of fasting, especially if you have a medical condition. So that's really important, and make sure you talk to your physician before you begin any of these things. So I hope that we covered that. We answered the question how to break a fast, and I gave you some ideas on how to break it. After this, after consuming this and reintroducing back nutrients into your body and calories into your body, because remember, what we're really fasting from, we're fasting from calories. We're fasting from fuel. We're fasting from protein, carbs, and fats. That's what we're fasting from. And so after reintroducing these into your body, you could wait a half an hour, maybe around that same half an hour, maybe less. Then you can have your proper meal after that. So because at that point in time, your body now has stopped this process. You are now receiving nutrients from the outside, which is what we're accustomed to. Because during fasting, we're using our own energy reserves. And then using this now to break the fast, it allows us to transition now to receiving back nutrients from the outside. Give it a half an hour, and then you could eat a proper meal. So, like 2 boiled eggs, a handful of nuts kind of thing. That helps to transition us back into eating a proper meal in that scenario. So, I hope that answers the question, guys. And if there's any questions or concerns further, you can most certainly leave it in the comments. I answer every single one. And as always, if there's any topics that you're interested in, shoot me a comment as well. So until next time, class dismissed.